Hello, my name's Janine Regan-Sinclair, and today I'd like to share some information with you about transgender and mental health. And I know this is a very, very delicate subject matter, and I just want to say that in no way am I saying anything bad about transgender people at all. My intention, in fact, is quite the opposite, is to be able to help as a therapist and a healer. But the other day, on Saturday the 19th of October 2024, I was invited to a national citizens' inquiry in Surrey in BC. And it was hosted in a hotel there, and there was a chap called, they call him Billboard Chris, actually, if you want to check him out. And Chris, under oath, shared a lot of information, and these are my notes. I've got quite a few notes that I'd like to share with you. So please don't shoot the messenger. I'm just sharing what he talked about. This is not my views, not my opinions on any of it, but I do think people need to know more about what was being said. If you want to find out the whole thing, you can, contact the National Citizens Inquiry Committee. It was all recorded on video, and maybe check out billboardchris.com as well, because this is a father in Canada who is travelling around and sharing information, in his words, to the child abuse that is happening. So I have written a lot of notes. I can't remember all this stuff. It was hours of information that I've broken down to share with you today. So I am going to be, glancing at my notes. So the topic of the inquiry was, are children safe? And they discussed many things. And this is just, one topic that was on the agenda for the day. So gender identity is different to the sex that you're born with, a boy or a girl, on your birth certificate. So this is all about that. They played a video, and the director of the Gender Multi-Speciality Clinic at Boston Children's Hospital stated that if your child does things like this, then they are placed in the gender dysphoria category. Now I want you to think about this, especially anyone out there that's got children. So the first thing she said, that is, if your child refuses to get a haircut, if your child refuses to stand up and pee, if it's a boy, or sit down and pee, if it's a girl, if a girl wants to stand up and pee, if they play with toys that were meant for the opposite sex, or a girl playing with cars and a boy playing with dolls, for example. If they want to wear clothes that would normally be there for the opposite sex as well. So these are the main things that this doctor was saying is reason for you to be concerned that your child has gender issues. Well, as a parent, and as somebody that was a child, to me, all of these things are normal childish behaviour. It's normal stuff. Children experiment with peeing. They experiment and play dress up with clothes. I was brought up with an older brother and a younger nephew. We all shared our toys. It was no big deal, and we all turned out fine. So this is what they're focusing this on. So just bearing that in mind as a parent. If they fall into any of those things in that category, then they are, it renders them, and I've got this in italics, able to be treated. Okay? And one of the doctors actually said that transgender kids actually seemingly know in the womb that they are transgender, which is probably one of the most ridiculous statements that was made on the day, but here I am again. I'm sitting on the fence. I'm just sharing what Chris shared with the group at this talk. So what does able to be treated mean? Well, able to be treated means that a child that is confused about their gender can be given puberty blockers and be put forward for a double mastectomy or castration. Girls as young as 12 have had their breasts removed in Canada, and boys as young as 16 have been castrated. And I think there's more going on there as well. So this type of thing renders them sterile, unable to experience orgasms, and none of this is reversible. Plus, they are treated with hormones. So boys are given estrogen, girls are given testosterone. And this can, 4 or 5 years for a girl on testosterone, for example, can lead to uterine and vaginal atrophy, which requires hysterectomies as well. So this major surgery is a result of side effects of these hormone blockers. The biggest gender clinic in the UK was the Tavistock. It's now closed, but 70% of the 1,069 children had 5 or more coexisting mental health issues. These are children that have been put forward for transgender operations. Sex changes is the old name for it. These 5 coexisting mental health issues included schizophrenia, bipolar, multiple personality disorder, which is also called dissociative disorder, eating disorders, abuse, sexual abuse, trauma, and autism. 35% of the 1,069 had moderate to severe autism. That's a third. This is just showing that more mental health treatment needs to be administered here, really, before operations and, puberty blockers and things like that. In the USA, 179 girls under the age of 12 and a half have had double mastectomies, and that's only the ones that they've got from insurance data, nothing on private operations that are going on. This is also happening in Canada. Puberty blockers are being given to children as young as 8, he said. And doctors are telling parents that the child may kill themselves if they're not given, these medications and operations. Well, the statistics from Finland, the data that shows in 27 years there were 6 suicides due to transgender dysphoria issues. So the suicide rate, unfortunately 6 is still too many, but nevertheless it's not an epidemic amount. According to the American Psychiatric Association, gender dysphoria is a mental health problem. So these children have got mental health problems and they're being guided to have double mastectomies and castrations. Remember, this is the information that Chris brought to the inquiry. All of this information I've just made notes on, he shared at the inquiry under oath as well. So he's done his research, the guy knows what he's talking about. The prefrontal cortex is the area of the brain that deals with our decision making, and it isn't actually fully formed until we're 25 years old. So is informed consent, are children this young able to give informed consent when a child's developmental range isn't even fully, they don't fully understand what they're getting involved in, basically. So these children are being sterilised and will be drug dependent for the rest of their life on these testosterone and estrogen medications. A study of 139 boys who had severe gender dysphoria, out of those 139, 87.8% of them grew out of it when they grew up, but many of them did grow up to be gay. So what's the possibility going on here that children that may be questioning their gender at an early age are being led down a transgender path when they're just gay. This is not a big deal being gay these days. And there is a bill that's been passed in Canada that prohibits people carrying out conversion therapy on gender at all. from gender identity to cisgender, which is your recorded birth gender. So there's actually a bill stopping people being able to give people therapy and move them away from the transgender to, you know, what's on their birth certificate. Chris also stated that there were videos that were shared. There was a psychologist in BC with the Ministry of Children and Family Development that is transitioning 504 children from who are orphans or in foster care. That's 20% of all the children in state care across the country, and 8% of the children in BC in state care. 52% of the children in state care are Indigenous. That's another important issue. He mentions the word indoctrinated constantly throughout the inquiry, that children are being indoctrinated, that doctors are being indoctrinated into convincing parents that this is the right thing to do. One father who was opposed to his 13-year-old daughter having testosterone given to her was told that he can counsel her as a friend and advisor, but he's got no rights as a parent under the BC Infants Act. Parents have no right to stop medical intervention at any age, provided a doctor thinks it's necessary. So what that's saying is that if you're a parent and your 12-year-old goes to a doctor and wants surgery, transgender surgery, that doctor can override your power of attorney over your child, and that you've got no rights to stop that operation going ahead. The other thing that's going on as well is the school policy in BC. Teachers Federation manual states that if a girl identifies as a boy in school, it's a school policy to hide that from the parents. So this is another thing that's going on in Canada. I'm only sharing what Chris shared in the inquiry. But if I was a parent of a young child, I would be very concerned about what I've discovered on Saturday and what I'm sharing with you today. So the education trans issues comes down from the UN through the governments into the school boards, and there's children in kindergarten. One of the members of the committee said that her 5 and 6-year-old grandchildren came home from school questioning their gender. I've got to be careful what words I use, because the teachers were talking to them about transgender issues, to 5 and 6-year-olds. Now, if you're a parent, do you think it's right that teachers are teaching your children about transgender issues at 5 years old? There are other teachers teaching children about masturbation at 5 years old. This isn't something that should be taught to children that young, and certainly not by teachers. So there's a lot of things to be thought about here, particularly if you've got children in schools. So bearing in mind that gender dysphoria is a mental health disorder now, it's recorded as a mental health disorder. There's 100,000 in North America diagnosed and 300,000 in America. So this is not a small issue. This is according to New York Times. What else have we got going on here? So they also had a video of a teenage girl that had been through the whole operation and the testosterone medications and things like that. And the core issue was no sense of self or core identity. She said she was never asked, and this was a girl on video, she was never asked if she had any personality disorders or anything like that by the doctors, but she did tell them that she had borderline personality disorder, and they didn't take any notice of that. They still went ahead with the operation, the full operation. So this is just, I've kind of put bullet notes together here. Chris also referred to multiple personality disorder being very common with, these children. And he used a word that I read about in a book recently, calling them alters, ALTERS. Now, I'm not going to say what the book is, but this book talks about all sorts of trauma-related control issues. And again, I've got to be careful of the wording that I'm saying on here. And multiple personalities are referred to as alters because they are altered and in another level of consciousness. So what we're dealing with here, an alter is what I would call a soul fragment. Anyone that is used to the terminology that I've used over the years. So this is like a split off of a part of the personality that splits away from the whole. This happens when we go through some kind of shock or trauma or accident or abuse or violence or anything like that. So when we have multiple traumas or multiple shocks or something like that, a part of the psyche splits away from the whole. These alters, soul fragments, soul splits. These are the types of terminology, and depending on whether you look at it from spirituality, whether you look at it from a psychological level, or where you look at it from, any other level. There's all these different ways of describing these things. But these parts, anyone who's ever been through the death of a loved one, the death of a pet, maybe you've lost your job and you didn't expect that to come, or a big shock of any kind, you go through a kind of numb experience. It's like you feel numb. When somebody's passed away, you feel numb. You're just going through the processes. This is what happens when a soul split happens. A soul fragment splits away from us. Well, these children, if you look at the percentages here, a lot of these children fall into categories of mental health issues, and they talk about these alters and parts of them and things like that are not within their whole, in a holistic way, in their whole system. When we feel like that, we feel disassociated, disconnected, we feel ungrounded, we feel weird, numb, vulnerable, anxious, overwhelmed, all kinds of feelings when things like that are going on in our system. I've written on platforms like academia.edu about consciousness and about addictions and about PTSD and things like that, and I talk about soul fragmentation there. So, Chris was calling them alters. All of these things are not being addressed. These children are being put forward to go through highly invasive surgeries and pharmaceutical drugs for the rest of their lives that can lead to other health issues. And 4 or 5 years in, the girls sometimes will need hysterectomies because of problems, because of the testosterone that they're taking into their systems and atrophy in their female parts. So there's a lot missing from this whole thing that's going on, and it's a massive, massive topic of conversation at the moment. And please listen when I say I'm not judging this one way or the other. The only reason I've decided to do this video is because I've done a lot of research into the multidimensional aspects of the subconscious and these alters that are fragments based on trauma and mental health issues, and I know that they can be repaired. This isn't me guessing this. I know these things can be repaired. So these kids need more mental health help from people that have got expanded consciousness, not just a psychologist or just a counsellor. We need to understand the spiritual health and these soul fragments, these alters, these soul splits more than just looking at it from one perspective, because there's a lot going on here. And this is why I've studied hypnotherapy, counselling, psychology, kinesiology. I've worked with shamans. All these different areas of mind, body, spirit need to be addressed if there is ever going to be any kind of really solid help for what's going on here. This is hundreds of thousands of children. Hundreds of thousands. This is a massive problem. And I don't feel they're getting the help they need. I think they're being pushed into a system that's taking them down this road that lacks the full education of mind, body and spirit. And by spirit, I mean the energetic bodies. This is what soul splits are, soul fragments are, part of the energetic body on an emotional level that have broken away from the whole due to trauma of some kind or shock or something like that. I have 20 years of experience in working with this type of thing, with this type of problem. And I'm here today hoping and asking to please share this video with as many people as possible. If you know anyone who has got a child or is going through issues to do with gender that needs help, I have the skill set to be able to help people. If you know anyone that would like to talk to me about it on a podcast or something like that, I'll be more than happy to share the information on how this problem needs to be addressed on a wider range. Because what's happening at the moment is a funnel of mental health being funneled into invasive operations that may not be necessary at all. I think there's a severe lack of understanding of the multidimensional aspect of transgender issues. I'm not against transgender people at all. I'll be very blessed to meet and be friends with some in my lifetime. But what's going on with children is a completely different issue. Adults can make their own decision from a grown-up, fully formed brain. Children can't. Their parents have had the right to stop this being stripped away from them by bylaws, bills saying that they can't stop what a doctor wants to do for their child. I don't know about you, but I don't think that's right. So I just wanted to share this today because it really moved me when I was at this inquiry, when I watched videos of children that had been through this and regretted it, and there's no going back, to doctors saying things like a child knows, even seemingly in the womb. One doctor at the Boston hospital is on video saying, how can a child seemingly know in the womb that it's transgender? That's come out of the mouth of a doctor. So there's a lot going on here that needs to be looked at from a much wider perspective. Children need to be protected. Children need to be protected. So if you do know anyone, if you're on social media and you follow any of these groups, or you know people that are in some sort of activism in any way, shape or form because they're trying to help children, then please do share this video with them. If you want to know more, Billboard Chris, and I take my hat off to the guy, he's been attacked when he does his tour in the country, when he's giving his talks. They broke his arm, they've made his nose bleed. He is being attacked because he's speaking up against this to protect children. This is not about anti-trans. This is about protecting children. There's a big difference. If they go through the system and have, the mental health care that they need, that looks at mental health, not just from mind, body, but from mind, body, spirit. And by spirit, I mean the energetic body. And that's a fact. Quantum field is a fact that we are not just a physical body. That's a scientific fact. This area needs to be addressed. These soul splits, these alters, these soul fragments need to be brought back and realigned in these children before they go under the knife. More needs to be done. More awareness needs to be shared. There's a much bigger picture here. Much bigger picture. So if you do know anyone, please do share this. Please share it on Instagram. Please share it on Facebook. Share it with as many people as you can. Because without your help, I can't get this out there. If you've got comments, please leave a comment below. But please don't leave any hate or nasty comments, because I'm just going to delete them. That's not what I'm about. I'm not against trans. Definitely not. I'm not against anyone. Anyone who knows me will know me as the least judgmental person you will ever wish to meet. But I am against operations that destroy people's bodies, sex lives, and are unnecessary, happening to children and taking parents' rights away. So thanks for listening. Please do subscribe and check out some of my other videos. There's information on there about soul fragments. There's information on there about birth trauma, and a lot of problems in society are linked to birth trauma. I've spoken about that. All of these different areas need to be taken into consideration when these children are receiving mental health treatments. So thanks for listening, and I will see you all again soon. Please like, because it makes a difference. Please do leave a comment below, and please do share this. Check out my website, the link is below, and if you're interested in healing and meditation and learning more, please consider joining my Patreon channel as well. I do 2 live healings a month for $5 USD on there. So thanks for listening, guys. Have a fantastic day, and I'll see you all again soon. Bye.